Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 WGC Dell Technologies Match Play. That is a mouthful. This is my preview and pick show. And first and foremost, thank you for stopping by or spending a few minutes with me. Yes, the brackets are out, and yes, I have made my at least first round picks. So I'm going to dive into all that. I'm going to give you all the information. There's a lot to know about this event. It is very different than what we're used to. So if you are new but interested in playing DFS and making, some entries, you're going to want to stick around. Also talk a little bit about some bets that I've already put in as we go through this. So I've got a lot to cover. And lastly, I'll do a quick recap. So let's start with that, with the recap from the Valspar. Okay, so if you watch the Valspar, of course, you know that Mr. Sam Burns won the Valspar again, and that's his last year picture. And here's the new one, and super excited for him. Of course, I mentioned, if you watched any of my Valspar stuff, that I was all over him last year and hit him, and of course was on him again. He was in my top 5 picks. This year, what kind of killed me was not a very profitable weekend for me. Hopefully it was a little better for you guys. But Morikawa and Hovland pretty much playing the worst golf I've seen them play as from tee to green than I've ever seen. It was not good. So if you got to watch quite a bit of it, you would understand what I'm talking about. And of course, Sammy Burns had to go to a playoff with Mr. Davis Riley, who really, he's the one I think that came out of nowhere. I've seen Davis Riley have a good 18 holes, and we'll look a little more about him. And but that was shocking to me. But the course at Innisbrook Copperhead was a little different. And I talked about it in my preview shows that the rain that we saw come through the TPC Sawgrass had to go past, of course, by Tampa, where this is being held. And I was wondering how that was going to affect the tournament. And what we saw was, typically if you've seen this tournament in the past, usually it's just burned out tee boxes and dried up greens. Not as bad as the Arnold Palmer, but somewhere more closer to that. And because of the softness and the receiving of the greens, that a lot of these guys could fly at pins, and also, of course, somewhat nutty with the putters. Hence, Davis Riley, how he got to where he was. And then what I think was interesting, I just wanted to point out again, in almost kind of just a quinky dink, or just kind of very interesting to me, was I noted in my pick show that if you look at last year in 2021 of the form and everything that was going on with Sam Burns before he won this tournament, it looked very eerily similar to what was transpiring again. So it's crazy it worked out that way. But if you look, of course, he had a good showing at the Genesis in 2021, had these 3 missed cuts, not terrible at the RBC, and then comes out and wins Valspar. And like I said, everybody was so high on him on the good West Coast swing he had. And when we came over to Bermuda, of course, Bermuda Burns, we thought it was going to translate right over. And then a lot of guys got off him. And his odds also went up, which was nice. And he's never won a tournament at this point. So I think, if I remember correctly last year, I think he was 60-1 when I hit him. And then again, if you look, back all the way to the Tournament of Centuries, he had a 19 out of 38 players, and then went on to miss 3 cuts, and which was odd that, on the West Coast swing, he did not do very good as he did the previous year. And then got to Arnold Palmer, showed up, and looked really good. And then the players had an opportunity, but it kind of fell apart on Sunday for us. But you can see his putting started to improve. He was on Bermuda, and this was okay. And the driver was hanging in there, and away you go. So awesome for Sam Burns, just like Paul Casey, back-to-back winner. So something else that might be interesting we want to look at in the future. I mean, again, I think it's just a coincidence. I don't think there's really a whole lot you can put to that. And then let's talk a little bit about Davis Riley. Of course, I'm pulling this up. This is just his pretty much almost his whole career. He had a few other spot starts where he actually missed the Sanderson farm cut twice, which that threw me off a bit on him. I know, like I said, I know of Davis Riley, was somewhat from a, below 7K play. I evaluated him. He did not make, I don't think, even my mentions, alone my top 5, even though some of my mentions did very, very well, hence Matthew Neesmith. But we'll get to him in a second. But anyways, just so you can see, the only top 10 finish he's ever had was Bermuda. And that's, I don't want to call it a slap and tickle, but it is an alternate event. The field is very weak. Yes, there's some wind there. It's a coastal course. But it's hard to take that and translate it over to having any kind of success at the Valspar. And we'll look at the stroke gain data so you can see how these guys did it. in a second. And then Matthew Neesmith. Now, here's the crazy thing. He was one of my mentions that I said, hey, I recommend to play him below 7K. He didn't make my top 5. And shame on me because I actually had him in my top 5. And I can't remember who I booted him out for now. But it also affected, I only played 15 entries in a large GPP format again. I had one that did okay. But moving on, you could also see where Mr. Neesmith, of course, he had a miscut, but again, he's never had, that I saw, a top 10 finish. His best showing out of all these events all the way back into the fall would have been the 14th at the Shriners. But Matthew Neesmith is an elite ball striker. So he was someone I was on, just typically around the green and the putting is where he falls apart. And of course, so you had on Friday, he went out, shot a 61. I'm going to mess these up. And had like the 54 hole. No, he had a 36 hole scoring, set the scoring for 36 holes. And then, of course, you had Riley who set the 54. And so, again, you could see all these guys were setting records again with the course being in the condition it was. All right, if we look at just some quick stroke gain data, just so you can see how some of these guys did it. The stars are the guys that I picked. I believe I had 5 out of my 20 picks. 15 made it through, and I give it a B minus, C plus. Again, nothing amazing. I had Sam Burns in my top 5, which that was good, but what really killed it was Morikawa and Hovland. But I didn't see that coming. Morikawa is a very interesting kind of situation right now because he's doing a lot of things very bad that I've never seen. He's not only missing fairways, his irons aren't as sharp, and his short game's horrific. Hovland, I've seen this before where Hovland will go out and just have some issues with the driver. It happens. It's amazing when you see it, but it does happen. I think it's just a lot of golf on Hovland's side. I think it's just a ton of golf, and I think he finally just kind of hit the wall. With Morikawa, there's an interesting narrative out there that as soon as he got to be player, world ranking number 2, and he even stated to some degree, some quotes I've heard was that he was a little bit maybe focused on it, kind of forgetting of, hey, let's just take this one day at a time, one hole at a time, and worry about winning a tournament. Let's not worry about trying to get the world number 1, which is a big deal to him. So I don't know if that's causing some things, but, he also didn't play a lot of competitive golf. So I wasn't so worried about the players because of the draw that he got. But then to go watch him play at the Valspar, and yes, he made the cut, but it was just so unlike Morikawa, the game that I was watching. The putter is going to be hot or cold. That's Morikawa. But what shocked me was some of the pitching, was, some of his irons, even, he wasn't hitting his typical, slight fade off the tee. So I don't know. We're going to have to keep an eye on that as we go forward. Okay, enough about that. As I mentioned, I had Burns, I had Fitzpatrick. So both those guys were in my top 5. So that worked out pretty well. Adam Hadwin, I believe, made the second 5. And he showed up. And, that was one where I wasn't 100% feeling great about it. But just some recent things I saw. Of course, he also has talked about that, he's kind of not worried about his swing. Now it's working on his mental game and just how he handles himself, approaching the tournament, during the tournament. So he seems like he's in a really good space to do well. We'll see how that translates. Then, of course, Shane Lowry and Alex Noren. So that was kind of made up, and that's the bulk of the top. There's just needed a couple more. But really, it's always the Davis Rileys or like Aniban Lahiri. It's if you find that guy that, you can see the pricing here is a little bit higher now, but at the time, these guys, I think they were both like below 7,000. I think Neesmith was 6,800, and I would think Riley was even cheaper than that. But anyways, and just real quick, you can see Burns, still off the tee, wasn't doing what, typically you see Burns, but a crazy on approach, which he's kind of, flicked that over within the last 2 years. His irons used to not be very good. And now he, I think he was 100 and something ranked with his irons. I think he's like top 20 now. You see the putter, of course, making that crazy putt in the playoff. You can see Davis Riley, off the tee did great. And the putting and around the green, the irons were not sharp. But this was, I think, the big, contrast when he went out on Saturday and went, whatever it was, 10 under, 9 under. Justin Thomas looking good, still had a couple just timely missed shots, but playing great golf. So someone definitely want to keep an eye on coming forward, especially with the Masters. Neesmith was, very solid and crazy. I don't know if he led the field with his irons, but almost 8 strokes. Also had a very hot day with the putter on Friday. And then I'm not going to go through all these. You can kind of see, and if pause the video if you want to look at this a little further. But that's all I really want to talk about the Valspar. We got so much to cover with the WGC Dell Match play, so let's do it. Okay, so we are done with the Florida swing. Some good, some bad, but it's nice to move on. Now we are heading over to Texas, and of course this is in Austin, and they're going to be playing the Austin Country Club, which there's some difficulties this where for some odd reason they don't do stroke gain data, or I don't get the stroke gain data. Now I found it here and there on like data golf and that kind of thing, but so you can't do a ton when you're just looking specifically at guys who've done well on this course. I think they might do it because it's a match play, right? And you're not getting all 18 holes. But anyways, just to let you know that up front, but we've got a ton of stuff that we can leverage to help us kind of navigate through this. Of course, this event has been hosted here at Austin Country Club for the past 5 years. Of course, in 2020, it was canceled due to COVID. And this is another Pete Dye course, which we don't talk a lot about it in the analyst world when we're doing comparable courses, because again, we just don't have the stroke gain data to really leverage that. But it is some similar to a couple of Pete Dye courses we have seen. Very tricky off the eye line. You've got a very risk reward. There's a lot of change in this course, and I'll get into that between the nines. But it is a par 71. It's a little over 7,100 yards, so not too far off from what we've been seeing at like the Honda TPC Sawgrass, which is another Pete Dye, but yardage is a little less. And we're on the course fairways of Bermuda. Rough is saying it's going to be 2 inches Bermuda, and we're still on these Tiff Eagle greens with Bermuda with the little tiny overseed of Poana or Poa Trivial as they call it, but really it's a true Bermuda, and it's just a Tiff Eagle. Of course, the player field, we've got the top 69 players in the world, and 64 are playing. Of course, you've got just announced today Sam Burns is backing out. I guess he had some back issues, I believe, a while ago. I think it's, hey, I just won. I'm going to be playing in the Masters. I don't know if it's Burns' first time playing in the Masters. I think it is. So I think he's going to be more focused on that. Probably go scout out the course, start getting some early practice rounds. No shocker. I mean, I can't blame him. With this bumping up so close to the Masters, you're going to have some of this. Of course, Hideki Matsuyama's out. McIlroy. And I'm probably going to miss, of course, Phil Mickelson is not going to be playing, but I think he's going to wait to play the Masters if we ever see him again. But anyways, you've got the top 69, but 64 out of those guys. And of course, they take these 64 players a lot like we just are seeing in March Madness, and they're going to be put into these 16 pods or groupings. And it's all seeded by world rank. So if you're number one seed in the world, like a John Rahm, you'll end up with like the lowest seed at the very end, and you figure it out from there. Some past winners, if you haven't been watching this or new to the WGC Match Dell play, or the WGC Dell Match play, I should say. Billy Ho won last year. Again, I kind of mentioned in my last week's show, this is one of my favorite events. And I had him and Spieth get into the very final, but Spieth, did not make it that far. I don't even know if he made it out of his pod now. I don't remember. But of course, Billy Ho won it, so it helped me win him lot of money in different ways. But of course, he defeated Scheffler 2-1. Kisner previously defeated Kuchar 3-2, and then the year before that, he lost and was a runner-up. So he's like one of the first guys that's done that. So of course, Bubba Watson. We have seen there's been some success with lefties here. The average green size is average. It's 5,500 square feet if you take them all into effect. Ton of sand here, 110 sand bunkers, so a ton of that. You've got 7 holes where water does come into play. You've got, we'll go over the course map real quick. And then the stent meter, what I can find is, probably running around 12. Might get a little faster, depends. We do have quite a bit of wind that's going to be around the beginning, maybe some rain, and it's going to be cooler. So these guys are going to have some elements to deal with. And then again, course defense is typical. A lot of what I've been saying. You got wind, water. The wind does typically blow here. You got some tough long par threes. You got crazy elevation changes here. It's a very different course that I'll state in the past notes from 9 to 9. You got some narrow fairways in some areas. You got tree line. You got some par threes that run up almost kind of like a little cliff that you can go off. I mean, it's pretty crazy, the difference in the nines. And so on that note, just so you guys know, when I go to the course map, like the first 9 is a great course for the plotters, the strategic kind of the guys that don't hit it far, but they're very accurate. And then when you get to the second 9, it gets more open, and it seems like the bombers can take more advantage of like the par fives trying to make eagles. Overall, for this tournament, what I target is I first start from the green and I work my way back. I'll go over this in detail. And the other thing is, this is a ton of golf. So if you make it to the championship or the runner-up match or consolation match, I guess I should say, you could literally end up playing 7 matches. Which, if you played all the holes, which that doesn't happen, but if hypothetically you played all the holes, you'd have 126 holes in 5 days, which it's just a ton of golf to get through. And so that's why some of these guys also pulled out. I think, it used to be, just so you guys know, in the past history has been played at different courses and it had a different format. It used to be like what we see in March Madness. Instead, now it's round robin, where in these pods you play everybody once and whoever has the best out of that comes out. But you had issues where some of the big name guys were getting knocked out. So it was one single elimination, which I think is very cool from a viewing perspective. But of course, if you're a sponsor, that's not so cool. If you have the Justin Thomases and the Roms and all these big names get knocked out in the first or second day, you're going to start to lose some coverage. So, okay, so just real quick, I'll go over the course map. You can go watch again on YouTube, type it in, but it's like I said, a lot of the stuff they show you is green coverage. Like, once in a while they'll show you a great shot or a hole in one. Like Garcia had a hole in one last year, but typically you're just going to see guys putting and chipping and stuff like that. So, just to give you a quick understanding, this side here is the front 9, and this is very hilly. It's very tight, and then you kind of work yourself down into this area. As you can see, where water comes more into play, you got Lake Austin here, where people pull up their boats and watch. You've got, where is it, number 13, which is a really cool hole that you can, kind of risk reward to drive it. You can just see water definitely comes more into play on the backside, and it's a lot tighter on the front. So that's really the two key things that I would, say that's unique about this course. Okay, if you want to understand from a scorecard side, it's not a crazy long par 71. If I remember correctly, you have 3 par 5s, 4 par 3s, and 11 par 4s. You can kind of see it's very typical. It's saying, saying 5. Let me see that. No, the typical 6 birdie opportunities, 6 bogey opportunities. You've got some of these par 5s that are, very gettable. Number 6 and number 12 would be the best chances to make your eagles. That's definitely, a differentiator for, like I said, if you're thinking, depending on which way you want to lean on your picks. But yeah, I mean, and then what's probably the most interesting about this course is almost 3 of the easiest holes, or at least birdie opportunities, come at the end. So the end can really swing a match or, even the final. So I would say out of all of it, that's probably the most unique thing that I would state regarding, the scorecard, how this plays. And again, I did get the official scorecard, which is hilarious. It looks like something that I made on my printer, but this is what they released, and I checked all the yardages, and everything is spot on. So we're good to go with that. All right, so let me give you some quick information, especially if you're new to this, because there's quite a few different things that, from a DFS perspective, that you're going to want to know. So the first thing is scoring is completely different than what you're used to, as in getting points for pars and birdies and eagles, holes in one, and getting the negative points for if you bogey, double bogey, and worse than, and all that. There still will be placement. If I remember correctly, there is a placement thing that's not in here, but when it gets down to the final. But how you're getting scored here, and of course this is in DraftKings, so feel free to go check this out further. But you're getting points on the holes, each hole you win, the holes that you tie or have. And then if you lose, that's kind of like the bogey. Every hole you lose 0.75. And then, of course, if for some reason you just smoke your guy, which is a great thing, you get points for the holes not played. You get holes for the matches, won and matches halved. And then this is what's probably the most unique. Your kind of bonuses. If you win 3 holes in a row, like 3 birdies, you get +5. And then this is probably the most interesting. If someone goes out, like I said, and wins, say they win, I don't know, 13-6 or whatever, just something crazy, close them out quick. You get 7.5 points, especially if you have no holes lost. So again, you're looking for guys that can hopefully just steamboat one of their competitors, and you're going to be sitting pretty. All right, just some quickie information from past. You had 3 multiple winners, but this is all prior to it, if I remember correctly, prior to Austin Country Club. Tiger Woods had won it 3 times, a great match player. Jason Day, you had Jeff Ogilvy. Again, that's all older stuff. I wouldn't really worry about that. Top 10 overall seeds have won 9 of their last 14. Now, again, just kind of keep that in mind. There's a ton of volatility here. And when you see who I'm picking, you're probably going to puke a little in your mouth. But think of March Madness. There is quite a few upsets. Literally, you have to beat just the competitor that you're staring at. Anyone can have a good 18 holes. These are all the top professionals in the world. So just keep that in mind. Defending champion has made quarterfinals 5 times. So, there you go. Again, that's over a long kind of history. I'd say these last 2 are kind of most interesting. Kevin Kisner is the only runner-up to win the following year. So, of course, Scotty Scheffler was the runner-up last year. It'd be very unique if he did win this thing. And then this one I think is probably the most showing is last year, only 1 out of the final 4 golfers was seeded in the top 30. So that's a very key note. And Billy Horschel was 32nd who won it. So again, it doesn't mean that this year it could go totally different and all the top players ranked could, win it all and, win their matches. But you got to be someone that loves match play, someone that embraces it. And some of these guys do, some of these guys don't. Some of these guys have tons of experience doing it. And then the last thing, I got 2 more things. Let me explain how this is going to work if you don't know. So this starts on Wednesday. Again, very key to know. So you have your DFS lineups and everything in by Wednesday. Actually by Tuesday night. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is when all this group and pod play is going to be happen. So everybody's going to play each one at least once in their group. And then whoever has the most points coming out of that. There is tiebreakers where they will have to go maybe play extra holes if it does equal out. But that's how Wednesday, so that is like the round robin. And then comes Saturdays when it's single elimination. You got 8 matches, 16 players. And then, it slims down quite a bit. You got Saturday afternoon where they're going to get it down to then the final, 4 players. And then that's going to be the semifinals where you've got the consolation guys that go off early. And then later on, you've got the guys who are playing for the championship and, tee off around noon or 1 or something like that. So that's how it's going to be kind of played out from a viewing perspective, but we get to watch a ton of golf. And I really like the first few days because you get to watch a ton of guys playing, and it's just unique. And like I said, I really enjoy it. Here's the strategy I'm going to talk about, and I'll probably mention this at least another time, but the key thing to do in this is make sure you go to PGA Tour Bracket Challenge and log in and work through a bracket. And you need to do this before you do any DFS picks. Do not go and start just randomly picking guys, because what can happen is you could pick guys all in the same kind of area that eliminate each other. So you want to make sure you're picking guys that can make it through all the way. So you're going to want to pick, at least one guy in probably each of these quadrants, and then maybe you double up in the easier quadrant. So if you see an area that looks a little easier to get out of that you think, then maybe that's where your 2 guys come out of. But you want to make sure you have at least one guy coming out of each of the quadrants. So, if you call this quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4, you want to make sure you've got someone out of these that are going to, have a chance. Where a lot of people that are new to this or have not done this in the past are going to mess up, and they're going to put, maybe all their guys come out of this side and then find out, what am I doing? This stinks. So make sure, again, your PSA warning or whatever is, make sure you go get your bracket, work the bracket first, and then go make your picks. Okay, enough said. If you're betting, not the guys that you like, that doesn't matter. But from a DFS perspective, that is very key. Okay, so how do guys typically do very well here? Where am I leaning from my analysis side? And I'll explain that to you. This is the typical where I rate my stroke gain analysis. And this is a little unique. This does happen, but this is one of the courses in the way match play goes that I work my way back from the green. So typically I always start out like ball striking or approach, or maybe even off the tee. Totally opposite. I'm worried about guys that are really good putters. And even more specifically, I'm looking at guys that are really good inside 10 feet. In match play, the short game and the putting is what turns these matches or gets other guys very frustrated. When a guy drives it in the rough and then his approach shot's off the green and you hit a perfect drive for 350 and you stick it within, 15 feet and, you make your par and this guy, looked like for sure he's making bogey and then he drains a 20 footer to tie you. So that is the overall thinking. If you've watched a lot of the Ryder Cup, if you know match play, it is about short game putting. So that is my top three areas: putting around the green, sand saves, short game. And then, of course, approach is very key. Here, I'm not worried about distance. It's a short track. It's shown that, guys that bomb it can win it and guys that are plotters and just hit fairways can win it. So I'm going to lean towards good drives. What does that mean? They hit fairways, and then on their approach shot, they hit the green. Scrambling is going to come in effect. You do have trees here. You're going to need to be to scramble to get up and down. And then because we don't have the historical shot gain data, I don't have exact percentages, but me knowing this course, me knowing what the layout is and what these guys typically drive it, the two proxies of the pins that I'm most concerned with is 75 to 100 yards in. So that's where you're hitting most of the shots will be coming in from, and then 100 to 125. So, if you think off the top of your head, Justin Thomas, even at one time, Colin Morikawa, and I say at one time because he's just freaked me out with his game. I'm not saying he's done. I'm just saying I'm terrified about playing him in this thing. And then you've got 11 par fours. So I want to look at guys that, you got to be able to make your pars and, hopefully gain a stroke or two on the field on that. Then the par threes, which showed up last year and hence why Billy Ho, I think, was a key factor why he won this, is that he is very good. And I've talked about him before. Adam Scott, very good on long par threes. If you go do some analysis on that. And then, of course, you got to make birdies. Eagles will be great on the par fives, but we're going to need guys that still make birdies. Okay, so typically this is where I pull up the past winners and I go over the stroke gain data and we highlight and find what they did very well. I do have some data, but I don't even really trust it. That came from Data Golf. So what I'd rather do is just give you guys at least this. Who's done well in match play events here? And so I was able to pull that up. So if you look at the player records, the most winning records at this course, number one, Kevin Kisner, hence, of course, why he was on my screensaver. And also he's got those crazy eyes and I just laugh every time I see some of his pictures. But he loves this kind of, this event. This is his baby. And he knows and he states, I've got 5 or 6, like a Kevin Na, got 5 or 6 tournaments that I know I can go compete and win at. This is one of them. And also, like I said, many times we've said he should have been on the Ryder Cup and it just has never happened. All right, so going off that, you got Kevin Kisner, Matt Kuchar, who's not in the field because he's, just hasn't played that good of golf to get the ranking. But you do have Louis Garcia, DJ, who's a past winner here, Alex Noren, who's been playing great golf. There's Bubba, lefty, John Rahm, who, of course, does well in match play. We saw that here not too long ago at the Ryder Cup. Ian Poulter, again, great match play, great Ryder Cupper. I just don't know if his game is where we need it to be effective. Of course, Jordan Spieth. Both these guys, when the putters are on, watch out. Then, of course, you got JT, Patrick Reed, Paul Casey, Nah, Billy Ho, Fleetwood, Hatton, Koepka, Leishman, and Cantlay. That's your top 20. There's a few more, but, I wanted to pull these guys up for you that are in the field, at least most of them. And you can start to, kind of see some things, right? So, Kuchar, Kisner, not long, but very accurate off tee. Great short game, great putters. Louis falls into that camp too. Garcia's got more of a pop to his bat, but just has played a ton of match and just likes it. Spieth, Poulter already kind of talked about. Reed. Paul Casey's kind of interesting because he's more of a pure ball striker and a terrible, not terrible, but not a good putter. Kevin Navo kind of fits that, short game, gets up and down from anywhere. So yeah, it kind of, that gives you a good picture there. And then if you want to know the guys who had a losing records on the side, funny enough, what I like is Daniel Berger 3-9. Fitzpatrick, which you would kind of think this would lean towards him, but he's 6-9, and also he did not have a very good Ryder Cup recently. Hideki's not in the field. You got Webb, but his game is trash, so it doesn't even matter. Lowry, Kim, Wiesberger, Westwood, DeChambeau, Peters. Corey Connors, that's a perfect example. Amazing ball striker, but terrible short game. Sebastian Munoz has not had success here, but funny enough, I like. And even Henley. There's Morikawa's only been in it once. But Zadenhout, that's 0-2-1. The one didn't show up, which is a little shocking because he kind of fits the mold that I would be looking for. Killer Keith, Hovland, but like I said, a lot of these guys have only, they were kind of newbies last year, you could see. But it gives you just some ideas of the guys over here who's had success at this course under this format. Okay, so as always, I created a custom stat model, and this is going to be focused on the recent form. I've added a few more rounds than usual. Typically, I do 12 rounds when I look at recent form, but because I'm looking at things in the putting and around the green and areas of the short game, I like a little larger sample than just the last 3 tournaments. And with that said, if you want to know where I broke down from a weighting perspective, putting weighted heavily at 15, around the green at 10. You see short game at 10, scrambling at 5. Good drives, got to hit the fairway at 15. Approach, got to be able to put it close to the pin, hopefully. You got the 2 proximities that I am estimating that are going to be the most unique and the ones that you want to focus on at 75 to 100, 100 to 125. All at 5%. You got sand saves with 110 sand traps. You got some long par 3s. 3 of them are 175 to 200. Of course, you got the 11 par 4s I mentioned. And then instead of birdies, I actually put in birdie or better gain. So it just is how many opportunities that these guys get at making a birdie or an eagle or whatever it is. And then with that said, just so you know, of course, pricing has not come out from DFS, at least when I was recording this. And also, Valspar data was not put into this model. It was not in the Fantasy National yet. So this is taking everything from the players back. And the number 1 guy popping up there is Scotty Scheffler. You got Russ Henley, Berger, Hoagie, Horschel, Neiman, Lowry, Schauffele, Straka, Thomas, Simpson, Hughes, Burns, who is not in this tournament, as I've already mentioned. He pulled out. And Kevin Kisner and Noren. So that said, that gives you a good understanding of guys that have just been doing the things that I think you're going to need to do well here at the match play and give you under recent form. All right, we don't have, as I mentioned, we don't have any historical data, at least within Fantasy National at Austin Country Club. So what I did look at is what's the history at Pete Dye design courses. So typically when whenever we're on a Pete Dye, I think it always makes sense to just take a look. Again, looking at the past 6 tournaments or 24 rounds that have been played on Pete Dye courses, this would be like Harbor Town, TPC Sawgrass, and under the same model, if you look at number 1, Webb Simpson. Now, again, this is the problem when this is taking pretty old historical data because there's only so many times that they played on a Pete Dye course. And Webb Simpson's game is not up to par as far as I'm concerned. You got Brian Harmon, Scott, DeChambeau, Casey, Lowry, Berger, Connors, Fitzpatrick, Reed, Johnson, DJ, Fleetwood, Answer, M, and Varner. So with that said, that gives you an understanding of guys, again, that's had some success on a Pete Dye course, if that's also something you would want to look into. And then I mentioned short game. Of course, that is the number 1 area. This is, a little unique. I don't usually put in short game, but this is kind of taking everything outside of about 30 yards. So T-Hat, Berger, and this is looking over the last 12 rounds. I want to look at a little more recent data. It's got Terrell Hatton, Berger, Straka, Cantlay, Lucas Herbert, Fleetwood, Kisner, Scheffler, Hughes, Louis, Morikawa, Neiman, Fitzpatrick, and Ian Poulter are the guys that rate the top 15 in short game. And then, of course, I always want to look at putting. Putting is the key thing here. And I know it is hard to predict who's going to putt well or not, but we can see there is guys out there, as we know, that are just better putters than others and typically perform with the putter. So if you want to understand over the last 24 rounds, six tournaments, not looking at a specific type of green, who has been the best putters over that time period. You got DJ, Straka, Hatton, Reed, Kokrak, Cantlay, Horschel, Power, Hughes, Scott, Kisner, DeChambeau, M, Scheffler, and Wolf. Now, what I like to know is who's been really good on Bermuda. And funny enough, DJ still comes up number 1 over the past 6 tournaments they played on Bermuda. But then Kisner is number 2, of course, past winner, runner-up. You got Reed, Fitzpatrick, Hatton, Horschel, Bezadenhout, Leishman, Norman, Burns, Rose, Mitchell, Louis, Straka, and Henley. And then the last thing I wanted to see was who was the best guys between 5 and 10 feet. These are the putts, again, that I think show up time and time again. Very crucial match play that you need to make. Could be the difference between getting a point or not. And the number 1 guy, funny enough, that came up, and this is looking at the past 12 rounds. Note to self, Terrell Hatton, Straka, Herbert, Simpson, Kokrak, DeChambeau, Reed, Watson, Minwoo Lee. That's a little interesting. I'd be curious how old the data is from there. Koepka, Bradley, Victor, Young, Scheffler, and then Kevin Na. All right, so typically comparable courses is something that, I I weigh a little bit heavy. I don't want to say heavy, but it is definitely a differentiator for me to help me, like I said, kind of pick between A and B if I'm kind of on the fence. And it's also just a good reference point. And the ones that I'm focusing on for this, I'm looking at Harbortown, which is probably the best comparable course. It's a Pete Dye, par 71, very similar in yardage, similar green size, Bermuda greens, TPC Southwest. So a lot of the courses we've been looking at. I threw in PGA National. There's some similarities there. Bermuda, I believe it's par 71 or par 70. I always get that confused. I think it's a par 70 at PGA National. But anyways, very similar there. And then you got another Pete Dye at TPC Sawgrass, par 71. And then, of course, I left in. I mean, it says it has something for Austin Country Club, but I don't think there was any stats that would come against it. Long story short, if you want to know the guys who've done well on those courses, again, under my model, Webb Simpson, which makes total sense. I mean, you give me Webb Simpson back, I don't know, a year ago maybe, I would be all over in this match play event. But these other guys make sense. Lowry, Tringali, Berger, Power, Varner, Thomas, Louis, Henley, Connors, Fitzy, Answer, Bradley. I mean, here's the guys that have done, or the past 6 tournaments on these courses have done well. Okay, let's break down these groups. And I've got this course in 4 different sections. This is group 1 through 4. And talking about round 1. And the first group that you come to is Mr. Jon Rahm, Patrick Reed, Cameron Young, Sebastian Munoz. And I think if you look at this like I did at first pass, you say, yep, easy, Jon Rahm, move on. But the problem we're having is if you look at the data, and I'm not going to be able to go back and forth from the data in these, but if you look at the analytics on what's been going on with Jon Rahm, he's been losing over the last 3 tournaments around the green and with the putter. And I believe it'd be 4 tournaments now total. So I was excited when he went back to his older putter, and it did seem like it was getting a little better at the Players, but I still have not seen enough. So with that, and I also got Patrick Reed, where typically this would be a smash spot. I love Patrick Reed in a match play. Captain America. You've got one of the best around the green putters in the game, but it has not been there for over 6 months. He did gain, I think, almost 8 strokes with the putter at the Players, so there's something you could say. But he's still losing off the tee, still not great with the irons, and I don't think he's still up to snuff. Now, he could have a Patrick Reed moment and, win this thing, just as easily. And again, you got to remember, it's 18 holes. If they get to 18 holes, and it's, one time, whoever has a hot round, whoever has a hot putter is going to win these things. Cameron Young, of course, been playing great golf, awesome ball striker, hits the ball a ton off the tee. He's never played in this event before. And then you got Sebastian Munoz, who's also been, ball striking amazingly. He's just, again, does his putter heat up or not? With all that said, funny enough, who I'm going to go with as my 1A pick is Sebastian Munoz. So what do I mean by that is I'm going to tell you my 1A, that's Sebastian Munoz, and my 1B would be Jon Rahm. So when I make DFS lineups, will I sprinkle in some Rahm? Yes. But the main guy that right now that I'm thinking I'm going to go with is Munoz. All right, we're going to fly over to Group 2, and this is a little interesting, right? Colin Mora, as I mentioned earlier, has had 2 terrible outings. The first one we can forgive, right? He didn't play competitive golf for 2 or 3 weeks, goes to the Players, gets in a bad flight. He gets in the PM AM, and so give him a pass. But then he goes to Valspar, and I watched just some horrific golf from him. Tee to green, putter, everything was just bad. Now, can these guys have a bad outing? For sure. But it makes me nervous. Jason Kokrak, his putter, his whole game also has not been where I'd like to see it. So I'm out on Kokrak. I'm just going to make it that simple. Bobby Mack, we've only got to see him once. He did well here last year. But long story short, I'm going to go with the guy that just kicks butt whenever he plays in a match play. He's done well here last year, every year. I'm going with Sergio Garcia. So that's my guy coming out of Group 2, if you want the quickest analysis. Now we get to move down to Group 3. Now you've got some elite ball strikers, right? You got Victor Hovland, who hit the ball, again, horrific at the Valspar. You got Will Z, who's an amazing ball striker. Maybe, I think, might lead on approach right now, but cannot make a putt to save his life. You got Tringali, who I think is just a solid golfer around, but the putter has been up and down over his last 4 or 5 tournaments. And then you got Seb Straka, of course, who recently won at the Honda in good form, but also is a newbie to this kind of event. So with that said, the guy that I'm going to go with, amazing enough, is Cameron Tringali. People will say why. I mean, I showed you he's played this once before, didn't have a ton of success whatsoever. But if I think of a guy around the green and putting and just an all good, solid game, I like Cameron Tringali out of this group. So again, there's going to be some crazy picks that you're probably not going to agree with, and I understand that. I'm just letting you know where I'm leaning. All right, out of group 4, pretty good group, right? You got Patrick Cantlay, Sunjay M, Seamus Power, Killer Keith. Now, if you go look at Patrick Cantlay, the same thing. I mean, his irons have been off the last 3 or 4 tournaments. His putter has not been where it was, like when he was just a robot at the FedEx Cup. You got Sunjay M, who's just pure steady, but the putter hasn't been great. Typically, it used to be on Bermuda, but, is an interesting play. I think Sunjay and Seamus Power are kind of equal, where they both are very steady tee to green and typically do pretty well on Bermuda. And then you got Killer Keith, who's been playing, really good golf, coming in great form, but typically around the green, the putter is where he can struggle. So this is a hard one too. You would think instantly, I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay. And if Patrick Cantlay was looking anything like he did at the FedEx Cup area, it would be a no-brainer. But funny enough, I'm going to go with Seamus Power. Again, looking through the data, look at what I've seen. I like him. He's just a steady player. I think he could be very gritty. And this probably means a ton to him if he could actually pull something like this off. So with that said, that's where I'm going in my group one. And like I said, out of all these guys, maybe the one that you would say, you'd be Sergio Garcia. I guess, again, I was mentioning 1B. So Seb Straka would be my 1B out of group 3. And then I guess for group 4, it's a toss-up between Cantlay and M. But yeah, Mitchell, I can't get my head around that he'd be really good in this format and wouldn't, have some issues with the putter. But who knows? He's been playing great golf. All right, let's go on to group 5 through 8, who I'm liking. All right, so of course you got the runner-up of last year, and was won already 2 tournaments this year with the Waste Management. Of course, Arnold Palmer. You got Scotty Scheffler, and also side note, I mentioned this, but I want to say it again. On Wednesday, they're going to have some really crazy wins, and it's going to be a bit cool, at least for the first couple of days here. So just again, remember that. You got Matthew Fitzpatrick, which I showed, hasn't had a ton of success. Of course, in the Ryder Cup recently, didn't do that great. Under my theory of the guys I'm looking for, he's a perfect fit. But, also in a recent form, I think he, was he 8th just recently? Been playing some decent golf. This group here, I think, is probably one of the tougher groups to come out. Tommy Fleetwood, again, in the win, good player, been playing really good golf. The putter seems to be a little better. Then you got Ian Poulter, the match play specialist, who, of course, again, typically in these kind of events, just heats up, makes every putt, really isn't, loves match play. So this is, I think, the toughest group to pick the guy that's going to come out. But I'm going to go with Scotty just under recent form, what he's done, again, knowing the win. Of course, he's a local to Texas, has played this course quite a bit. So also, I think he wants to maybe, of course, he came right up last year, maybe show, hey, that wasn't a fluke last year. Of course, we all know how great his game's been, but might want to go out and prove something here. And he's also has a little bit of a break, right? He did not play at the Valspar, so we got a little bit of breather there. We got Fitzy played at Valspar, you got Fleetwood, and I believe Poulter played at Valspar. So you can use that as a little bit of a narrative. All right, come. Oh, and if you ask me my 1B, I guess it would have been Tommy Fleetwood, would be the guy that would have put in second. All right, going to group 7, you got Xander, Finau, Lucas Herbert, and then Takumi Kanya. I don't know enough about Takumi, and I wasn't even enough to even go look. So I who knows? This could be the guy that comes out of this group, because you're going to get these random dudes. Last year, what was it? Antoine Rosner, who beat I believe Rahm. So, anyways, Finau has been playing horrific. So right off the bat, scratch him. Takumi, no, I'm scratching him. So really, for me, it was between Xander and Lucas. And if you look at around the green, he had the recent win. Oh boy, was it Bermuda? I'm gonna forget. And then of course he had a win on the DP World Tour. He's really good putting on Bermuda and also around the green. Xander, of course, he did amazing. Well, not amazing, but he did very well with Patrick Wright in the Ryder Cup. He's got a solid game, good putter. So I mean, you could flip it either way. Funny enough, I am gonna go with Lucas. And that's my 1A, and Xander will be my 1B. And then that wasn't supposed to pop up, but it already did. So out of Group 6, this is probably the next toughest. So these 5 and 6, I think, are some of the tougher groups to figure out who you want to come out. Of course, JT's had great success in match play. I showed you that. Kevin Kisner, ultimate here. You got Leishman, who that should fit well, but I don't think his putter has not been where I'd want it. And then you got Luke List, awesome ball striker, also been playing good golf, right? Won the Farmers, his first win on tour. But I removed Luke because the putter is just so quick and ink. Leishman's putter is not where it's been. So it comes down to Kisner and Thomas. They've both been in good form. You could flip a quarter. I'm going to go with Kiz. And then my 1B would be Justin Thomas. All right, moving on to Group 8. You got DJ, Homa, Wolf, Hughes. Pretty simple, just scratch Hughes. I'm sorry, scratch Matthew Wolf. Disaster. I mean, again, who knows? Maybe he flicks the switch, but there's no, you really get it down to 3 quickly. Mackenzie Hughes, kind of fits the mold that I'd be looking here, but his recent form has not been good. Not good enough for me out of these guys. But is a putting specialist. I always said he's kind of a Cam Smith light in my brain. Really good around the greens. He just could get very wayward with the driver and irons. So you're really down to DJ and Homa. DJ, again, not the greatest showing at the Valspar. So with that said, Max Homa's been playing some amazing golf. And I feel like you need a scrappy, gritty guy like a Kisner. He can fight things out. You saw when he won the playoff against Finau for the Genesis win. I mean, I just like Homa. That's just where I'm leaning. So Homa would be my 1A, and then DJ would be my 1B. All right, moving on to groups 9 through 12. You've got, of course, DeChambeau, who is not DeChambeau. We've not seen in quite a while, and supposedly he just started hitting his driver like a couple days ago. So no, thank you, Bryson. You weren't that great of form with your puttering around the green even when you were playing. So I'm out on DeChambeau. You got the Gooch has been in amazing form. Can get super crazy hot with the putter on Bermuda. Lee Westwood just had, for whatever reason, no success in this event, but has done okay in match play. Of course, played a ton of Ryder Cups. So if you look at his Ryder Cup history way back when he first started, awesome. It's kind of petered. And then you got Richard Bland here, which if you don't know Richard Bland, he's actually been having success over on the DP World Tour. Had his first win last year there. Of course, he showed up, and I might get this wrong, but I believe it was a U.S. Open where he led after day 2. This guy is the prototypical, for me, match play guy where all he does is hit fairways, not very long, good agrees, and the guy makes a ton of putts 10 feet and in. So with that said, believe it or not, that is my guy. I'm going with Richard Bland out of Group 9. My 1B would be Taylor Gooch. So it was a tough toss-up between those two guys. And when I say 1B, again, these are guys that I'll also use in DFS, but I'm telling you my favorite pick coming out. All right, moving over to Group 10. You got Louis Oosthuizen, Paul Casey, Corey Connors, Alex Noren. Just remove Corey Connors. No short game, can't putt. Maybe that changes. Maybe he gets lucky and finds something, but that's removed. You got Paul Casey, who bowed out of the Valspar. Kind of interesting he's playing in this, but we'll see how that all works out. But right now he's in it. It has done pretty well here. But the putter, great ball striker. The putter is not where I want it. Louis also had a good record match play, but he came out on Thursday, had a good Valspar, then just kind of blah. He didn't really do much after that. So Alex Noren's been running hot, putting great, around the green great, hitting fairways. I'm going to go with Alex Noren out of that group. Moving over to Group 11, you got at one time the short game master, Jordan Spieth. You got Adam Scott, Justin Rose, Keegan Bradley. Again, I stated it. Jordan Spieth, he's not making putts anymore that he used to. The driver's been fine. The irons have not been where they need to be. You got Adam Scott has been playing really good golf and is typically a pretty solid putter. Funny enough, if you look at the stats, JR also a good putter at times. So and then Keegan, I'm removing him because you sucked at the Valspar and you blew up a lot of my teams, so you're done for that. But you're also done because you really typically can't putt. You're thrown into Corey Connors' bucket. So with all that said, I'm actually going to go with Adam Scott. And then I think actually my 1B would have been Justin Rose. I just, Spieth, again, like a Patrick Reed, he's a perfect fit for this in their heyday or at full power, but I don't feel like that's where they're at. Now, again, it's golf. At any moment, they could find something, come out and just tear it up. All right, the last group out of 9 through 12, of course, is Group 12. You got Billy Horschel, your past winner, also picked last year, and I believe it was an 81 to pay out, I believe. You got Thomas Peter, who had the win over, I believe it was on the DP World Tour not too long ago. Tom Hoagie had his first win at Pebble Beach. Been playing great, awesome with the irons. Putter has been, pretty good. Then you got Minwood Lee, where again, just not enough that I would want to make a judgment by. But again, when you get these crazy guys that we just don't watch enough of, that's the guys that somehow will come out. But of course, I've got to go with Billy Ho. He's been playing amazing golf, amazing finishes. Um, he had to pull out of, what was it, the Players? I believe it was the Players. He pulled out, but of course he didn't play in the Valspar, so hopefully all is well. I know it was some kind of injury. I know he had a neck thing going at one time, but hopefully if he's right, this, as we already know, is a great setup for him. I mean, before this, he didn't have the greatest track record here, but the guy makes every putt within inside 10 feet. He's great on par threes. He's hits fairways. He's been hitting fairways. The irons, sometimes go a little up or down, but he's been hitting the ball well. So out of that, I'm going to go with Billy Ho. And then if I had to pick my 1B, it'd be Tom Hoagie. All right, let's go to the last groups to give you guys who I'm looking at here. Group 13. You got Terrell Hatton, you got the Burger, you got the Si Woo Kim, and you got the Seabez. Of course, Terrell Hatton, the driver's been a little wacky. The irons, maybe not up to where they can be, but he's a good iron player. But he's been gaining a ton of strokes with the putter, good around the green. Daniel Berger's been playing great golf, great putter. I mean, this length of course, even though his record in this event is not the best, this should fit him 100%. You got the Siwoo Kim, Pete Dye specialist, but very quirky with the putter. But who knows? Then you got Seabez. So this is also a difficult one. But I'm going to go with Berger. I'm going to go with the guy, even though his record in match play has not been great. Did pretty well at the Ryder Cup in his match play. But out of these guys, this is the guy I would lean on. And then, funny enough, if I had to pick number 2, I think I'd just take a flyer and go with Seabez would be my 1B. Just because, like I said, his short game is usually elite. Okay, moving over to Group 14. You got Joaquin Niemann with his huge win at the Genesis. You had Kevin Na, who we've not really seen in a while. He pulled out of the Players. Not sure why. I don't know if it was an injury. Oh, no. I think he had another baby, another kid. I believe that's what it was. You got Russ Henley. Awesome. One of the best iron players. Great on Bermuda again. He kind of was the best, and then he went down, and now he's back. You got Mad McNeely, who also, can get a little wayward with the driver. The irons can be on and off, but usually a pretty good putter. Out of this group, funny enough, who I'm going with is Russ Henley. He's been playing amazing golf. Should have won the Sony. Has really been showing up there. I think he can grind it out with that putter as long as the irons are firing. I mean, Kevin Na also is interesting to me. So it'd be Henley is my 1A and Kevin Na be my 1B. Joaquin just is too streaky with the putter in the short game. All right, let's move over to Group 15. You got Answer, Simpson, Harmon, and Watson. You've got Bubba Watson past winner here. And then for me, it's pretty simple. I'm scratching Webb Simpson because he's just been terrible. And then Abraham Answer has just been, I think, mediocre with the irons and the putter and everything. So really for me, it kind of came down to Harmon and Watson. And I'm going to go with Harmon. Again, not the greatest track record at this, but it should fit him. He's a lefty. Usually can be a bulldog, can be great with the putter around the green. Been having good showings, had a good showing again at the Valspar. So I'm going to ride that hot hand, and then Bubba Watson would be my 1B. And then last but not least, Group 16, showcasing Mr. Brooks Koepka, Shane Lowry, HV3, and Eric Van Rooyen. This is a quirky one here. I mean, talking about any of these guys that can get super hot. I mean, Koepka actually had a great Sunday at the Valspar. Good putter. Of course, we know all the majors he's won. The next guy would be Lowry, who's been just elite and been playing well. A great Florida swing. You got Harold Varner, who, had his win over on the Asian tour, technically, at the Dubai. And then you got EVR, who literally can go shoot, 6 birdies in a row and then 6 bogeys, so he can get crazy hot with the iron. So out of all that, I ended up falling to Shane Lowry. He's just been putting amazing. We got some conditions with the wind. Just been playing good, solid golf. So I just need a steady guy. That's who I'm going to lean on. And then I would probably have to go, funny enough, with Koepka. If he really wants to do this and win something and get, above ranked number 20th in the world or wherever he's at now, then yeah, that'd be my 1B. Okay, with that said, tomorrow I will maybe just walk through my whole bracket with you guys, kind of look through anything else that I can give you for tidbits, strategies, whatever it is. But I gave you the preview. I gave you at least my round one picks for you guys. Again, what I recommend you guys doing is go jump on to PGA Tour Bracket Challenge, fill out a bracket. Use my information, anything else, whatever you like. Again, like March Madness, it's going to be volatile. There's going to be guys coming out of these pods that we would never expect. Typically, that's how it works. Now, this could be a total switch where all the guys that should come out, you never know. With that said, hey guys, click that like button, share with anybody else. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Putting out 3 shows a week of this good stuff. And if you've not followed me on Twitter, do so at DFS Golf Guru. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, and then that's it. We have to have our lineups and all that. And I mentioned I'd tell you my bets. I apologize. Let me pull that up real quick for you guys. I don't have anything visually to show you, but I can run through them real fast. Okay, here you go. So the super long shot that I usually do with you guys, of course, is Richard Bland. He's at 250 to 1. I think long shots are great to play here. Get all over them. If you're ever going to play long shots, I think this is the tournament. For me, that it would be a great time. A guy just gets hot, could do very well. So I got Bland at 250 to 1. Of course, I told you I like Tringale. He's 130 to 1. I did bet on Mac Hughes. He's 130 to 1. Seamus Power, 100 to 1. Got Tom Hoagie at 100 to 1. Russ Henley, 35 to 1. And then, of course, Billy Hull, 30 to 1. So right now, that's my bets I put in. I got him in early, so I don't know if it's changed, and that's through DraftKings Sportsbook for you guys. All right, with that said, talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening. Bye.